Hello folks and friends, and wow. I don't know if this was attempted murder, but you almost gave me a heart attack with how you all responded to Angel Dust's video. And of course, some of you probably read my community tab, so you already know I wanted to answer to the overwhelming demand for more Hazbin Hotel characters. So hi! Here, today, we're going to pay Alastor a visit. This is a very long one, so I hope you'll enjoy it. He was a joy in a pain boat. You'll see, I won't say more for now. Today's victim is going to be this reboot Frankie, one of those who have no articulations and molded on clothes. Of course that body won't do at all, so I'll be combining it with this orphaned Laguna body who lost its head last spring. So now the first thing to do is to prep the doll. Like usual, we need to go in there and cut the hair as short as possible. I use some sharp scissors for that. After popping her head off, which I do by submerging it in hot boiling water, I use a flat screwdriver, shove it in the neck hole and scrape the plugs from the inside. Then I go and remove the factory paint. I use heavy duty nail polish remover and it is about 98% acetone. It goes off like a charm. So I don't know if it shows on camera, but the reason I took a reboot doll is because I feel their sculpt is not as intense as the originals. Here compared to another Frankie, I did the same for Angel Dust, but I used a Draculaura for him. I got a few of those dolls, so might as well use them. Here, I'm just using a regular good old pencil to mark some lines on the head and on the face because today we'll be performing quite the intensive surgery. I want to give my doll that creepy yet charming Alastor smile, and you know, he won't be fully dressed without it after all. I am pulling some inspiration from the Lightsfall's Banshee video from a few years ago, but I will do it differently. So here are my markings. I've also placed some on the body too, because I want to reduce some of the curves it has, mainly on the thighs and on the chest. I'll be using my Dremel tool for some of the muds. Don't forget to wear a mask and glasses. You should also ideally wear gloves. I'm trying to sand off Frankie's lips. Then I use something way more abrasive for the hard plastic on the body. And lastly, I will cut off the ankles. I don't want Alastor to wear high heels, so I'll be repositioning his feet. Alright, let's now start with the muds. First, facial surgery. I open the head and the mouth area. I want to have good access to all these parts. I am using a very sharp artist knife and I proceed slowly and with caution. I am careful where I cut, especially at the bottom, because I want to leave the neck hole untouched. This needs to retain some squishiness to fit nicely on the neck peg when I'll be done with the project. I find it's often a weird feeling to destroy things before putting them back together when customizing. I can also already tell that this project is going to go through stages of looking like pure nightmare fuel, so yeah, I had to add him from my girlfriend because it scared her. She can look at my pretty dolls, but the scary ones sometimes are a bit too much. So this is Warbler. I'm going to use that to glue and stabilize the lower part of the face, so it's going to be easier for me to sculpt these new pearly whites, well, the yellows. I'm going to fill the space with scraps of thermoplastic, heating it with a heat gun. Warbler is also sticky and it bonds very well with a lot of things, and that includes vinyl. You really don't have to apply a lot of heat, it's a very quick process. What was not as quick though was to fit the pieces the way I wanted inside the head without compromising the neck hole, but ultimately I prevailed. Do be careful if you use a heat gun on the face like that. Leaving it too long could melt the vinyl. You don't need much, so you can go slowly. Once I'm happy with my covering, I'm just testing out the fit and gauge out where exactly and what angle I want the lower jaw to be repositioned at. I trim the excess vinyl if I need to. Some holes are alright because we're going to sculpt on it anyways, so we can fill those out. This is where I started feeling like a mad scientist. This project was so ambitious, but all the comments and views you folk gave me was, let's say, it motivated me to grab the challenge by the horns, or well, in Alastor's case, antlers. To glue that lower jaw, I picked my heat gun and reactivated the glue from the roar blow, and that was enough to hold it securely in place. Then I went back under the chin to try to smooth that area out. I will be filling it, but I still wanted it to be as flat as I can. Yep, that's starting to look and settling alright. Is it befitting of an overload from hell? What do you think? Okay, so now I need to close the way to his brains, and the best way, and more solid in my opinion, is stitching. So yeah, I'm stitching the top of his head back on. Looks a little painful. Well, it was a bit for me too, so I got the pliers out to help me with getting that needle through. Sometimes you need the big guns, tools, and anyways, you get my meaning. And that's one surgery done. Congratulations, Mr. Alastor, sir. Insert applause sound effect. I really need to find more of these actually. I can seem to get half of what I want from the YouTube library. If you know where I can get some, please let me know in the comment. So yeah, Laguna has fins and webbing. I could steal another doll's arms, but nah, I'll live with it. I carefully removed all of that with my knife. You can also sand between the fingers to help smooth everything. Now, to glue those ankles. I tried inserting a wire first to connect the pieces, then I use a whole lot of hot glue. It's only the first step though, I'll use epoxy sculpt over that. Before getting the clay out though, I wanted to build the base structure of the things he has on his head, in case I needed clay to solidify these. And by things I mean his small antlers and those things I thought were deer ears but are actually just part of his hairstyle, as far as I know. So I'm shaping these out of jewelry wire, and for the pseudo ears I cut them out of foam and then added a metal skeleton if I may. With that done, we finally switch to clay. I am using Epoxy Sculpt, a 2-part modeling compound. You have to wear gloves when you mix it, but you can work with bare hands once it's ready to use. I cannot stand gloves, so that's how I chose to do it. So, the star of this video, Alastor's face. I start by filling any crack and hole that need patch up to be smooth. and then I slowly get around to sculpt his smile, or at least deciding how wide I want it to be. I don't have a lot of tools, so I mainly use my trusty silicone tool and one of my large needles. I am also keeping a little bit of water nearby because that helps with smoothing this particular type of clay. I did a bit of back and forth, but really, I knew it was going to be really hard. I am in no way a sculptor, and this was really my first attempt at doing something like that. I know epoxy sculpt though. I know I can easily sand it once it's fully cured, and it's completely hair dry, so that's perfect. The downside though is that you have to wait about 24 hours between each pass for it to fully cure. I knew I was going to have to do a lot of these. Thing is, I'm a perfectionist. This is definitely a blessing, but trust me, it's also a curse. It took me about a week to get to that result, and I will be honest, I was not satisfied at this point. I was just so into it, so over my head and tired and a little frustrated. But I kept going, even trying to smile. And at some point I decided to follow a friend's advice and decided to do the face-up. Maybe some color and definition was going to bring everything together? Of course, I was not sure. And of course, there is no ominous foreshadowing here. So, Alastor's skin tone is marked as beige on the wiki, and I feel like it borders a bit on grey in the animation, so I am using warm browns and a bit of grey to shade and contour his face. Being frustrated and impatient, I did the eyebrows way too early, which is usually not a good sign. You usually want to layer a fresh coat of Mr. Super Clear sealant between steps so that you can save your progress. Here, my efforts to try to retouch those brows is messing up with the contour, and it's also way too dark way too early. I mean, he's looking like nightmare fuel alright, but actually possessed, not like a charming devil. Though I'm stubborn and yes, sometimes I need to push a face to the end to finally love it, but I mean, am I the only one seeing that I was not in the right state of mind for that? Alastor is... well, he's charming. I could even say I personally find him quite sexy and seductive, but that's not it. Not yet, at least. And sometimes I am tempted to hide my mistakes, but some of you folk told me you actually liked my honesty, so here. Sometimes I suck. And it's okay. The important thing, well, at least for me, is to keep going, to stay kind to myself, and listen to my needs. Sometimes you have to rest, then you can come back to it with a renewed energy and resolve and just nail it. So yeah, that face-up was bad, but it was not a waste of time, and not a waste of resources either. It made me see the face for what it could be. It made me be able to practice working on it. I also could look and see a bit more clearly how I wanted to draw the eyes or I wanted the brows to be, and it made me able to see what was finally wrong with my sculpting. And I finished it because that's just how I am. That reminds me, when I did Angel Dust, I got an overwhelming positive reaction, and that felt extremely validating. So of course I wanted to give you more of what you'd want, and I was not allowing myself to fail. But it's okay to not be perfect sometimes. Also, I received some comments saying that Angel's hair was positively awful. I don't agree, but I do see what you mean, and this is a valid opinion. Maybe I'll restyle his hair in the future. It's definitely possible. Also, I remember someone saying that they've seen some amazing doll artists and I was not one of them. And I just wanted to say that it's perfectly okay. You are all entitled to your opinion, folks. I will never be resentful or angry at anyone for that. Of course I'm human, so words can sting. But in the end, I'm just someone who's passionate and I want to keep improving. So who knows, maybe one day I'll reach other heights or not. We're just gonna have to live it and see. In the meantime though, I'll be focusing on that part of the face-up. I started using watercolor pens instead of acrylics at the end of my process. I feel like sometimes those details are what's doing it for me. I use that tiny nail art brush to go and add those tiniest details and spots of texture. Oh god, the lips and the teeth like are really, it's... I don't know, French brain, I'm losing my English. So yeah, shoo! Vade retroacetone! The power of heart compels you! So yeah, Nightmare Fuel like stage 3, 4? Where are we now, huh? Okay, so surgery result. In the end, I retouched his smile. I made it wider. I've also redone his lips. I've also gave him a new nose, a bit lower this time, and I gave him a bit more chin. It is much better in my opinion. So for this round, I am taking my sweet time. The face was repainted with a mix of watered down acrylics and then I primed it with a few layers of MSC. I really want to try and do my blushing a bit more strategically this time. Since I opted to not give him a feminine rosy cheeks, I gave him some color more around the eyes and temples. It's also more on the side of orange and corals than pink. I am a bit more careful shading around the mouth this time as well. I did put some white inside the eyes despite the irises and scleras being red, but that was more with the intent of having a base that was a bit more neutral, hoping that would make the colors pop as I layered things on. And yes, I am making him look to the side. I don't think I've done that on a doll yet, but that felt right to me. As for the eyes, it's all red even on the lids, so I was trying my best to define and add the right amount of shading. I wanted his eyes to seem like they glowed a little bit. I mean, like, please, Alastor, seduce me. Oh, you're Ace! Oh, no problem, so am I. Well, actually in part. So, he's canonically asexual despite being among the sexiest beings in Pentagram City. Though asexual doesn't mean aromantic. I don't ship him with Charlie, personally, but I know a lot of folks do and I respect that. Do you have Hazbin Hotel ships? Please tell me in the comments. Maybe angel dust with husk? As long as your ships sail, I mean, you do you, my love. This looks so much better, so yeah, I can feel it. That's the one. Plot twist, I failed again. For some reasons unknown to mankind, I thought this was a good idea to try, for the first time, those lovely mica powders I got from Magic Fly, with some Mod Podge, undiluted, while the ceiling fan is on, in the harsh summer heat, when everything dry in an instant. And I keep adding more, and again, and again, until it became a crust visible from space. Yeah, no. I was done restarting, so I did something. I loaded some acetone on that Q-tip and I re-raised his eyes. Just the eyes. So here's the finished face. It's not my best, so... well... I know in a few weeks I might give him a fresh makeover. I'm no stranger to do maintenance on my dolls though. This will be it for today. Good enough. Next! Ah yes, his hair things. Well, the advantage of having made those with long jewelry wire is that it is now fairly easy to install them using some of the holes that used to hold Frankie's rooted locks. I trimmed the excess length and then I used my pliers to make sure I would not squish the face. Once done, I secured them with hot glue and gave him a base coat of color to help with the hair. He looks like a devil, alright. For his hair, I prepared some acrylic yarn wefts with bright red and black. I prefer to layer these two colors instead of trying my hands at trying to make an ombre. Perfect deep black was going to be really hard. Of course, when it comes to cover a monster head with yarn wefts or making a wig, you need a lot more weft than what I'm showing on screen right now. It's a long process, but it's definitely worth it. Being on the impatient side, this time I am hot gluing those. You can also use PVA glue. Also, since I know Alastor has way shorter hair than that, I took the liberty to start cutting a bit of the length as soon as I could, so I can reuse those fibers to make more wefts and cover more space. So here, a little less extreme metal singer and a little more hell overlord. No offense though, I love quite a lot of extreme metal bands. Though my thing is more industrial music. What about you folks? Oh, okay, so that's pleasantly fluffy, and I think that covers most of his head. He needs a trim and a bit of styling though, and for that, I have my eyebrow razor ready. Here he is with the faux hairs done. And there he is with most of it done. I will still tweak it a bit here and there, but nothing major, that's mostly it. I did not dare go shorter in the back, but I could have. Now moving on to clothing. I've also been lucky. I saved Angel Dust's pattern, and it was perfect to save as a base for Alastor's jacket, minus the extra armholes of course. I did not add a wide range of reds, so I did settle for these two to match the jacket and the shirt. First, I made a sleeveless shirt. I know it's supposed to be the whole thing, but I chose to fake it and not risk too many layers of fabric on the doll. I also currently have a limited supply of thread colors, so I did most sewing with a deep wine red color. For this piece, it was really straightforward. I sewed the top of the shoulders and then the sides, and I hemmed every edge. I left the back open so I could add velcro later. So here's the first jacket, or I should say, my prototype. I knew I would have to do some tweaking because I changed both Alastor's and Angel's bodies, and it was not one size fits all. This one, well, it's not tight enough at the waist, I need more volume at the hips, and I also realized that this fabric was fraying, so I'll have to apply a coat of fray check to every piece. But now, since I have a clear idea of where I'm going, I can use the original pattern to trace a new one on paper and hopefully nail the shape that I am looking for. And it worked like a charm. I took my time sewing it and trying to make my stitches more consistent and especially more aesthetically pleasing, and I also added the cuffs of those sleeves that I won't be having him wear under the jacket. Those lines though, they were roughly made with a watercolor pencil. They are just a guide since it will fade away over time. So to make them permanent, I mixed and then tinned some acrylics and I carefully painted over them. I tested on a scrap of fabric beforehand to make sure that it was not going to bleed and smudge. And this is what I got so far. That black cross shape was also painted with acrylics. Then I pinned the shirt together just the way I wanted them to be and I decided to sew both layers to one another. Like I did with Angel, I glued the remaining details on and the top part of the outfit is done. The pants, though, were a little harder to make. I freehanded the pattern trying to match it to the base doll, hoping that it would fit. And since I am limited in the reds, I have decided I would use the same fabric as the jacket, but layer it with a deeper red-colored sheer material. Making pants feels a little weird, but once you get it, you're set. Basically, my pattern is one leg. You need two of these. You join them together at the front of the crotch, and then you can fold each leg on itself. And of course, you sew them with the right sides facing each other so you can turn them when you're done. So here are the finished pants. They are, well, not good. The edges are showing and they are a bit too short, and one of the ankles ripped a bit of the stitching. Oh well, times for take two. Like I did with the jacket, I'm going to modify my initial pattern. This is why doing prototypes and tests is important. Sometimes I get lucky with stretchy fabric, but everything I used for Alastor had no stretch, so I had to make way with it. That extra flap I added on the side there is to add velcro or a snap later on. I forgot to add that on my prototype. And after a few more hours of sewing, we have pants. They are not perfect, but they look just right for what I need, so I'm happy with them. Okay, so another nightmare begins. Did I ever told you folks that I absolutely loathe making shoes from scratch? Well now, you know. I repositioned Alastor's ankles so no Monster High shoes was going to give me what I needed. So I made a crude pattern of what I wanted more or less by wrapping the doll's feet with painter's tape and drawing it. Then I started cutting pieces of faux leather and using hot glue to try to combine them together and do something harmonious. Or at least something decent, that's what I thought. Thinking I would probably have to sacrifice not too much of my precious faux leather, and I might have to resize it once, maybe twice, but not too bad. But yeah, after a while it felt like it was becoming needlessly complicated. I lost my temper at it because some other issues arrived that day in my private life and I had to run around the neighborhood. Everything to make sure I don't enjoy making shoes, am I right? And then, yeah, it snapped, broke completely. And there was also another crack on the underside, and the wire I had put inside snapped. Like my sanity. So I decided to hell with it. They're going to be permanent. So I put Alastor's pants on, because after the shoes are done, they won't be moving. And then I repaired the crack with hot glue. And then I cut more faux leather pieces and I hot glued those directly on the feet. And to my relief, this is not half bad. Damage control, that's doable. Now for the soles and heels, I went in with my trusty Warbler. Now if you can make amazing custom doll shoes only with Warbler from scratch, well, I congratulate you for your talent and I wonder if you have not sold your soul to Alastor because that's impressive. I need to learn that skill too. And these are the finished shoes, and yeah, they're not bad. And of course I could not forget about important details, so worry not. I also slapped some red paint on his neck because there was no way I could sew a jacket going up that far and make it look clean and perfect. Now for his monocle. I made it with jewelry wire. I wrapped it around a pen to give me a nice round shape, then I gently pushed it to make it an oval. At the end of the length, I twisted the wire in a small hole so I could insert a needle and secure it on his head. For the lens, a bit of plastic packaging. I tried mixing varnish with paint to get a transparent effect, but it came out a bit too opaque regardless. I secured the needle with a drop of hot glue and attached a few black pearls. Though seeing it now, I feel like it's a bit too bulky, so I might change it for something more delicate in the future. We are not yet done because I also made his radio stick thingy? How would you call that? I mean, excuse my French brain, but I really don't know. But yeah, I made it mainly with two things I think are always underestimated in that hobby, namely hot glue and craft foam. Foam can be easily shaped with a bit of heat, giving me what I needed to create that dome shape. I stuffed the dome with a bit of yarn fluff just to make sure it does not cave in over time. I tried giving it an interesting paint job, but ultimately I feel like it's a bit too bulky and the matte varnish is also a bit too shiny, so was that necessary? You tell me. We thought I was done, but I almost forgot he needed hands. So yeah, lagunas. I gave them hot glue nails extension to make them a bit more demonic. Alastor doesn't have claws, but it felt like it was a nice compromise with how delicate the ends were from the get-go, so this is my artistic liberty. And with these painted, yes, we are done. I am pretty sure you can hear how tired I am in my voice, so well, I am extremely happy to present to you my version of Alastor, the Deer Demon. So, what did you think of him? Let me know in the comments below. I am extremely exhausted, so I will probably rest a few days. Don't worry though, I am not disappearing, and I'll keep updating you on my Instagram stories and YouTube community tab. Should I do a glow up on Angel and Alastor? Let me know. Anyways, next should be Princess Pluto and probably Vaggie and maybe a commission somewhere in between too. So, yeah, I'll see you soon folks, though in the meantime, stay safe.